What if you've been living by ancient wisdom without even realizing it? Stoic philosophy, the guiding principles of thinkers like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, might seem like something reserved for history books or deep philosophical debates. But what if I told you that Stoicism isn't just some dusty relic of the past? It's alive and well in the everyday decisions you make. In fact, you might already be practicing it without even knowing. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." These words aren't just lofty ideals. They could be quietly shaping the way you handle challenges, approach relationships, or even find calm in the chaos of modern life. In this video, we're going to uncover 10 subtle signs that you're already living like a Stoic. Whether you've read every philosophical text or you're brand new to the idea, what you'll discover might just change the way you see yourself. Ready to find out if you've been embracing Stoic wisdom all along? Let's dive in. Picture this: you're stuck in an endless traffic jam. Your plans for the evening are slipping away, and there's absolutely nothing you can do to make the cars move. Now pause for a moment. How do you react? Do you find yourself gripping the steering wheel, frustration bubbling over as you think about all the time you're wasting? Or do you take a deep breath, turn up the radio, and decide to make the best of the situation? If it's the latter, congratulations, you're already practicing one of the cornerstone principles of Stoicism, focusing on what you can control. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught, "Some things are within our power while others are not." Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, reputation, office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. In simpler terms, you can't control what happens to you, but you can absolutely control how you respond to it, and that's where your power lies. Think back to that traffic jam. The external event, the clogged highway, is outside your control. No matter how much you wish the cars would disappear, they won't. But what is within your control is your attitude. You can let the situation ruin your entire day, or you can decide to adapt, maybe by listening to a favorite podcast, calling a friend, or simply using the time to practice patience. This shift in perspective is what Stoicism is all about, mastering your internal world in the face of an unpredictable external one. This principle doesn't just apply to traffic jams. Let's say a project at work doesn't go as planned, or maybe someone makes a hurtful comment. While you can't dictate the outcome of the project or control what others say, you can choose how you respond. Do you allow it to derail your mood, or do you focus on the next constructive step? By focusing on your own actions and reactions, you reclaim your peace of mind. Here's a reflective question for you. How often do you find yourself stressing over things completely outside your control? Maybe it's a decision your boss made, the weather ruining an outing, or even scrolling through news headlines that leave you feeling helpless. Take a moment to think about your responses. Are they productive or do they drain you? When you begin to shift your focus inward to the things you can actually influence, you free yourself from unnecessary frustration. It's not about ignoring the world or pretending problems don't exist. Instead, it's about putting your energy where it matters most, on your own thoughts, choices, and actions. This simple yet profound mindset can transform the way you approach challenges, big or small. So the next time life throws you an unexpected curveball, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, is this something I can control? If the answer is no, let it go. If the answer is yes, focus on what you can do. This small mental adjustment could be the first step toward not just surviving life's setbacks, but thriving through them. And maybe, just maybe, you've already been doing this without even realizing it. Do you find yourself stepping back before reacting emotionally? Maybe when someone frustrates you, instead of snapping back immediately, you pause, take a breath, and think about your response. If this sounds familiar, then you're already tapping into one of Stoicism's most powerful principles, emotional regulation. The Stoics believed that while emotions are a natural part of being human, it's our ability to manage them, not be ruled by them, that defines true strength. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, put it plainly: the greatest remedy for anger is delay. What does he mean by this? It's not about suppressing or ignoring your emotions. It's about giving yourself the space to process them before they dictate your actions. Because let's face it, when emotions take over, it's easy to say or do something in the heat of the moment that you later regret. But by practicing that pause, you reclaim control. You're no longer a slave to your impulses, but a master of your reactions. Think of it like this. Imagine you're in a heated workplace conflict. Maybe a colleague undermines your efforts during a meeting, leaving you feeling disrespected and angry. The initial urge might be to fire back with a defensive or harsh comment, but what if you took a moment to step back instead? You might realize that responding calmly and constructively not only diffuses the tension, but also allows you to maintain your professionalism and preserve your reputation. This doesn't mean you ignore your feelings. You still acknowledge the frustration, but you decide how to channel it in a way that serves you rather than sabotages you. This kind of emotional self-mastery is a hallmark of Stoicism. The Stoics believed that while we can't always control the emotions we feel, we can control how we act on them. And here's where the distinction between feelings and actions becomes crucial. Feeling anger, sadness, or even fear is perfectly normal. It's part of being human. But letting those emotions drive your decisions unchecked is where problems arise. It's the difference between feeling anger and allowing it to escalate into a shouting match, or feeling anxiety but still pushing forward with what needs to be done. Now think about how you handle everyday challenges. For instance, when a loved one says something hurtful, do you immediately lash out, or do you take a moment to consider their perspective? When you're overwhelmed with stress, do you shut down, or do you find a way to take things one step at a time? These small choices might seem insignificant in the moment, but they're actually powerful demonstrations of Stoic philosophy in action. Here's something to reflect on. How do you manage your emotions when faced with challenges? Do you find yourself reacting impulsively, or are you able to take a step back and respond with intention? The next time you're in a situation that stirs strong emotions, try practicing what the Stoics called Premeditatio Malorum, or the premeditation of evils. Picture the worst-case scenario and prepare yourself mentally to face it calmly. This doesn't mean expecting the worst all the time. It's about building emotional resilience so that when difficulties arise, you're not caught off guard. Remember, emotional regulation isn't about being cold or unfeeling. It's about creating a space between stimulus and response, a place where you can choose your actions wisely. And if you're already doing this, even in small ways, then congratulations. You're living out one of the foundational principles of Stoic philosophy, often without even knowing it. Do you see challenges as setbacks or as chances to grow? It's a simple question, but your answer reveals a lot about how you approach life. The Stoics were masters of reframing adversity, seeing every obstacle as an opportunity to improve themselves. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and one of Stoicism's greatest figures, articulated this beautifully when he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the very things that seem to block your path could actually be pointing you toward growth and progress if you choose to see them that way. Let's break this idea down. Life is full of obstacles. You face them at work, in relationships, in personal goals, and even in your daily routines. But what if those obstacles serve a purpose? The Stoics believed that obstacles are not meant to stop you, they're meant to shape you. When you encounter a difficulty, it's not the universe working against you. It's an opportunity to develop strength, resilience, and wisdom. Think about a time in your own life when things didn't go as planned. Maybe you failed an important exam, lost a job, or faced rejection. At that moment, it likely felt painful, frustrating, or even hopeless. But looking back now, can you see how that experience helped you grow? Perhaps failing that exam taught you better study habits that led to later success. Maybe losing that job pushed you to find a career you're more passionate about, or perhaps rejection taught you persistence and humility. The lesson here is that adversity isn't the enemy, it's the teacher. Here's an example. Imagine you're working on a big project and halfway through, everything seems to go wrong. Deadlines are missed, feedback is harsh, and you're starting to feel defeated. A setback like this can easily lead to discouragement, but what if you viewed it as an opportunity instead? What if you used the criticism to refine your approach, strengthened your time management skills, and found creative solutions you hadn't considered before? By embracing the challenge, not only do you complete the project, but you emerge with sharper skills and greater confidence. That's the Stoic perspective in action, seeing obstacles not as roadblocks but as stepping stones. This mindset extends beyond personal achievements. The Stoics also applied it to character development. Facing adversity is how you build virtues like patience, courage, and perseverance. For instance, enduring a difficult relationship might teach you empathy and communication skills. Struggling through a fitness goal could foster discipline and self-control. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to refine who you are, turning you into a stronger, more capable version of yourself. So, here's a question for you to reflect on. Think of a challenge you faced recently. How did it shape you? Did it teach you something new, change your perspective, or help you grow in ways you didn't expect? Even if it felt overwhelming at the time, chances are there's a lesson in it that you can carry forward. Reframing obstacles as opportunities doesn't mean pretending everything is easy or ignoring the pain that comes with hardship. It's about choosing how to respond. Will you let the obstacle defeat you, or will you use it to rise higher? Adopting this mindset doesn't just help you navigate challenges, it transforms them into some of the most valuable experiences of your life. And if you found yourself doing this already, even in small ways, that's another sign you're already practicing Stoicism, perhaps without even knowing it. Have you ever felt happier choosing simplicity over extravagance? Maybe it was the decision to trade a busy evening out for a quiet night at home. Or perhaps you turned down the latest expensive gadget because what you already had was more than enough. If this resonates with you, then you're already living one of the most profoundly Stoic principles, valuing inner peace over external rewards. The Stoics believed that true happiness doesn't come from wealth, status, or possessions, it comes from within. Epictetus often reminded his students, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. In other words, the pursuit of material success might bring temporary satisfaction, but it's peace of mind and a virtuous character that lead to lasting fulfillment. And chances are you've already caught glimpses of this in your own life. Think about this scenario. Imagine being offered a promotion at work. It comes with a significant pay raise, but it also demands longer hours, more stress, and sacrifices in your personal life. Saying yes might boost your bank account and perhaps even your career standing, but would it bring you happiness? Now imagine choosing instead to stay in your current role, where your time outside of work allows for meaningful moments with family and friends, hobbies that bring you joy, and the ability to truly enjoy each day. In this choice, you're prioritizing your mental and emotional well-being, your inner peace over external markers of success. That's Stoicism in practice, choosing what truly matters over what simply looks good on paper. The Stoics were not against wealth or achievements, but they urged us to focus on what we can control, our character, our actions, and our mindset rather than chasing things that are fleeting or outside our power. They taught that external rewards like money and status are indifferent. They're neither good nor bad by themselves. Their value depends on what we do with them. For example, a large paycheck won't bring lasting contentment if it comes at the cost of constant stress and emptiness, but living with integrity, kindness, and gratitude. Those are things no one can take away from you, and they form the foundation of true happiness. Now, let's consider simplicity in practice. Maybe you've decided to cut back on unnecessary purchases because you've realized that owning more doesn't necessarily mean living better. Or perhaps you've let go of the need to prove yourself to others through flashy accomplishments, instead focusing on what brings you genuine joy and purpose. These choices may seem small to others, but they reflect a deeply Stoic mindset. You are choosing to live in alignment with your values rather than chasing after external validation. Take a moment to ask yourself what truly brings you contentment. Is it the rush of achieving a milestone only to immediately set your sights on the next one? Or is it those quiet, unassuming moments when you feel at peace, when you're fully present and grateful for what you already have? The Stoics remind us that happiness doesn't come from the things we accumulate, but from how we live, think, and act in the present moment. Ultimately, valuing inner peace over external rewards liberates you from the relentless cycle of comparison and craving. It allows you to focus on what truly matters, the quality of your relationships, your growth as a person, and the ability to find joy in life as it is, not as you think it should be. And if you've found yourself choosing simplicity, balance, or mindfulness over the constant chase for more, you're already embodying a core Stoic principle, whether you knew it or not. Have you ever reminded yourself how lucky you are for the small things in life? Maybe it was the warmth of the sun on your face during a morning walk, the sound of laughter from a loved one, or even something as simple as a hot cup of coffee on a chilly day. That moment of appreciation, however fleeting, is a glimpse into one of the most profound practices of Stoicism, gratitude. While we often think of gratitude as a passing emotion, the Stoics saw it as a way of life, an intentional effort to focus on what we have rather than what we lack. Seneca, one of the most prominent Stoic philosophers, spoke deeply about the power of gratitude. He wrote, "Nothing is more honorable than a grateful heart." To Seneca, gratitude was not just a polite acknowledgement, but an active, daily practice of recognizing the abundance we already have, even in life's simplest moments. For the Stoics, this wasn't just about being positive for the sake of it. It was a tool for grounding ourselves in the present and cultivating lasting contentment. Let's look at an example. Imagine the simplicity of a peaceful morning at home. The house is quiet, maybe you're sitting by a window and you have a warm drink in hand. It's easy to overlook moments like these while we're racing through our busy lives, but when we pause to acknowledge them, they become extraordinary. That stillness, the comfort of your surroundings, and the ability to enjoy that moment are reminders of how fortunate we often are. The Stoics encouraged us to train our minds to notice and cherish these everyday blessings instead of constantly yearning for the next big thing. Another example might be a meal shared with loved ones. It doesn't have to be extravagant, maybe it's a simple dinner at the end of a long day. What matters is the connection, the laughter, and the opportunity to be together. When you take a moment to reflect on that experience, you realize there's so much to appreciate. The Stoics believed that gratitude for such small, often overlooked aspects of life was key to happiness because it shifts our focus from what's missing to what's already present. But gratitude isn't just about feeling good, it's transformative. When you practice gratitude regularly, you start to reframe challenges and setbacks. Instead of seeing only what went wrong, you begin to notice what you still have and what you've learned. For instance, maybe a difficult day at work leaves you feeling drained, but you remind yourself to be thankful for the chance to grow, for having a job, or even for the small comforts that await you at home. Gratitude gives you perspective and helps you rise above frustration or bitterness. Now, take a moment to reflect. What's one thing you're grateful for today, right now? It doesn't have to be something grand. It could be as simple as the kindness of a stranger, a moment of quiet after a hectic day, or even the device you're using to watch this video, which connects you to ideas and knowledge. Whatever it is, hold onto that feeling for a moment and notice how it shifts your mindset. The Stoics believed that gratitude anchors you in the present, pulling your attention away from the endless cycle of chasing more. By appreciating what you already have, you unlock a sense of contentment that doesn't depend on external circumstances. And if you found yourself cherishing the small things in life, whether it's the beauty of nature, the joy of relationships, or the comforts of daily routines, you might already be practicing this timeless Stoic principle without even realizing it. Do you remind yourself that everything is temporary? It's a sobering thought at first, but one that holds incredible power when embraced fully. The Stoics were keenly aware of life's impermanence, and instead of fearing it, they saw it as a tool for living more meaningfully. This perspective is wrapped up in the Latin phrase memento mori, which translates to remember that you will die. While this might sound morbid at first glance, the Stoics weren't trying to foster fear. On the contrary, they believed that reflecting on mortality helps us appreciate the present and focus on what truly matters. Think about the fleeting nature of happiness, success, or even time itself. The people we love, the goals we strive for, and the moments we experience are not guaranteed to last forever. But rather than resisting this truth, the Stoics teach us to embrace it, because it's only by recognizing that everything is temporary that we can fully value what we have right now. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." These words aren't about dwelling on death, they're about inspiring us to live with intention and gratitude. Consider this: when you spend time with someone you care about, are you truly present? Or do you let distractions, busyness, or even irritation prevent you from fully enjoying that moment? Recognizing life's impermanence can be a reminder to cherish those moments, however small they may seem. Maybe it's a quiet conversation with a friend or a shared laugh with a family member. When you realize these experiences won't last forever, you naturally begin to savor them more. You show up with your full attention, and in doing so, you create memories that truly matter. This awareness also helps us adapt to change and loss. Life is constantly moving, relationships evolve, careers shift, and our circumstances can alter in an instant. If we cling too tightly to the way things were or expect everything to remain the same, we set ourselves up for disappointment. But by accepting impermanence as a natural part of life, we can approach these changes with grace. Instead of resisting, we learn to flow with them, appreciating what was while finding meaning in what is. Think of it like the changing seasons. Each one is beautiful in its own right, but none stays forever. A powerful example of this concept might be the end of a chapter in your life. Perhaps you've moved away from a place you called home, or a close friendship has drifted apart over time. While it's natural to feel sadness in moments like these, the Stoics encourage us to temper that sorrow with gratitude. Instead of fighting against the change, you can reflect on the joy and lessons those moments brought you and recognize that their impermanence is precisely what made them so special. Take a moment to reflect. How do you approach the inevitability of change? Do you find yourself resisting it, holding on tightly to what you've lost? Or are you able to embrace it, even if it brings challenges or discomfort? While it's not always easy, accepting impermanence can be profoundly liberating. It allows you to let go of what you can't control, focus on what you still have, and live more fully in the here and now. By practicing memento mori and accepting the transient nature of all things, you're not turning away from life, you're stepping into it with greater clarity and purpose. You'll begin to see that each day, each moment is a gift, and perhaps without even realizing it, you've been living this Stoic principle all along, finding beauty not despite life's impermanence, but because of it. Do you find yourself letting go of things you can't change? Maybe you've stopped grumbling about the weather when it doesn't cooperate with your plans, or you've decided not to waste your energy arguing endlessly about politics with someone who sees the world differently. If so, that subtle shift in mindset aligns perfectly with a key Stoic principle, avoiding complaints about things beyond your control. It's not about ignoring reality, it's about choosing how you respond to it and refusing to let external events steal your peace of mind. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and renowned Stoic philosopher, captured this idea beautifully. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. Complaining about things you cannot change doesn't alter the circumstances, it only amplifies your frustration. Instead, the Stoics teach us to accept external events calmly, redirecting our energy toward what we can influence, our thoughts, actions, and attitudes. Think about how often people vent about uncontrollable things. Picture the grumbling that happens on a rainy day. It's inconvenient, sure, but no amount of complaining can make the sun come out. Or consider heated political debates that spiral into anger or bitterness, even though the discussion won't directly change policies or outcomes. This kind of frustration creates unnecessary stress and drains our emotional energy. By contrast, Stoicism invites us to respond differently. Acknowledge the reality, let go of the urge to protest endlessly, and focus instead on what you can do. For example, instead of venting about the rain, you grab an umbrella and enjoy the sound of droplets on the pavement. Instead of stewing over political disagreements, you work to create positive change within your own community. This mindset doesn't mean you have to ignore your feelings or pretend everything is fine. It's natural to feel disappointed when things don't go your way. The key is not letting those emotions consume you or dictate your actions. When you release the habit of complaining, you create space for acceptance and problem solving. Complaining often keeps us stuck in a cycle of negativity, but choosing to let go of what's beyond your control allows you to move forward with clarity and composure. Here's an example. Imagine your flight gets delayed, throwing off your travel plans. It's tempting to complain, to vent your frustration on social media or to anyone within earshot. But does that change the situation? The flight won't magically be on time, and your stress will only escalate. Instead, a Stoic approach would be to accept the delay, then use that time productively. Read a book, catch up on emails, or simply relax. By focusing on what you can control, your response, you turn a frustrating situation into an opportunity to practice patience and adaptability. Now, here's something to think about. How often do you find yourself dwelling on things you can't change? Maybe it's the traffic during your commute or a decision someone else made that you disagree with. Do those moments of frustration help you, or do they just create more tension? The next time you're tempted to complain, pause and ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is no, try to let it go. Redirect that energy towards something more productive or fulfilling. Letting go of complaints doesn't mean ignoring problems or resigning yourself to being passive. It's about focusing your attention and energy where it truly matters. Accepting what you cannot change frees you from the mental exhaustion of resistance and opens the door to inner peace. And if you've already been practicing this, choosing not to let uncontrollable events dominate your mindset, you're embodying a timeless Stoic principle, perhaps without even realizing it. Do you step back and weigh the pros and cons before acting? If so, you're already practicing one of the most essential Stoic principles, approaching decisions with logic rather than impulse. The Stoics believed in the power of thoughtful deliberation, emphasizing that a rational mind is our greatest tool for navigating life. Epictetus taught, "Don't let the force of an impression carry you away." Say to it, "Hold on a moment, let me see who you are and what you represent. Let me test you." In other words, when faced with a decision, take a pause. Examine the situation carefully, consider the consequences, and only then decide how to act. This mindset can be particularly valuable in a world that often encourages instant gratification. Think about financial decisions, for example. Imagine seeing a flashy new gadget online. The advertisement promises it will revolutionize your daily life, and the temptation to click "Buy now" is strong. But before you rush to make a purchase, you pause. You ask yourself questions like, do I truly need this, or is it just a fleeting desire? Will this purchase bring lasting value, or will I regret it later? Can I afford this without jeopardizing more important financial goals? By stepping back and approaching the decision logically, you may conclude that your current gadget works just fine, and the money is better saved or spent on something more meaningful. That moment of reflection, a hallmark of Stoic thinking, helps you align your actions with your long-term values, rather than being swayed by temporary impulses. This principle doesn't just apply to money. Think about how it plays out in relationships or at work. Imagine getting an email that feels critical or unfair. The initial reaction might be to fire off a defensive reply fueled by emotion, but instead you pause, you take a moment to cool down, consider the sender's perspective, and craft a response that is measured and constructive. By choosing logic over impulse, not only do you avoid escalating the conflict, but you also foster better communication and preserve your peace of mind. The Stoics understood that decisions made in the heat of the moment are rarely the best ones, and they encouraged us to delay action until reason has had a chance to weigh in. This thoughtful approach also helps protect us from regret. How often have you looked back on a decision and thought, "If only I had taken a moment to think about it"? Whether it's a hasty argument, a rushed commitment, or an unnecessary expense, many regrets stem from acting impulsively rather than with careful consideration. The Stoics remind us that while we can't control the outcomes of our decisions, we can control the process we use to make them, and a process grounded in logic and reflection is far more likely to lead to positive results. Take a moment to reflect on your own habits. When was the last time you carefully weighed the consequences of your actions before deciding? Did it lead to a better outcome, or on the flip side, can you think of a time when an impulsive choice caused complications you could have avoided? These reflective questions aren't meant to criticize. They're tools to help you identify where you're already applying Stoic principles and where you might benefit from embracing them more intentionally. By approaching decisions with logic rather than impulse, you create space for wisdom and clarity to guide you. The Stoics recognized that emotions and instincts have their place, but unchecked, they can cloud our judgment. Rational deliberation acts as a compass, helping us navigate life's challenges with purpose and integrity. And if you've been applying this mindset, whether in your finances, your relationships, or your day-to-day choices, you're already practicing one of the most enduring lessons of Stoicism, perhaps without even realizing it. Do you try to see the other person's perspective before jumping to conclusions? If so, you're already embracing a key Stoic practice, seeking to understand before judging. The Stoics believed that true wisdom comes from empathy and compassion, qualities rooted in the ability to see others not as adversaries, but as fellow human beings who share the same struggles, flaws, and desires as we do. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, captured this beautifully when he wrote, Whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question: what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize? This simple yet profound idea encourages us to pause before placing blame or rushing to judgment. It's a reminder that we are all imperfect and that understanding others begins with recognizing our shared humanity. Instead of immediately reacting with frustration or criticism when someone behaves in a way we don't like, the Stoics teach us to take a step back. Ask yourself, why might they have acted this way? What pressures, emotions, or misunderstandings could be influencing their behavior? This shift from judgment to curiosity transforms the way we perceive and interact with others. Think about a disagreement you've had with a friend or family member. Maybe they said something that upset you or failed to meet your expectations. The initial instinct might be to get defensive or assume they were intentionally inconsiderate. But what happens when you pause and try to understand their perspective instead? Perhaps they were stressed, distracted, or dealing with their own challenges that they hadn't communicated yet. By choosing to listen and empathize rather than react, you create space for resolution and connection. You might find that the tension eases, and what could have spiraled into conflict instead becomes an opportunity to strengthen the relationship. This approach also works wonders in professional settings. Imagine a colleague misses a deadline, throwing off your team's plans. It's easy to jump to conclusions and assume they were careless or unmotivated. But what if, instead of blaming them, you ask why it happened? Maybe they were overwhelmed with other responsibilities, or maybe they misunderstood the expectations. By approaching the situation with understanding rather than judgment, you not only resolve the issue more effectively, but also build trust and cooperation. The Stoics didn't view empathy as a sign of weakness, they saw it as a strength. Marcus Aurelius consistently reminded himself of the shared struggles and flaws of humanity. He wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they cannot tell good from evil." This wasn't meant to foster cynicism, but to remind us that people's actions often stem from ignorance or pain, not malice. By anticipating imperfection, we're less likely to take things personally and more likely to respond with patience and compassion. Here's a question for you. How often do you make an effort to see someone else's point of view before forming an opinion? Do you listen fully during a disagreement, or do you find yourself planning your response before they've even finished speaking? What might happen if the next time you face a conflict, you approach it with the intention of understanding first? This small change in mindset can transform not only your relationships but also your own sense of peace and clarity. When we prioritize understanding over judgment, we embody one of the Stoic ideals of wisdom and compassion. Life is full of misunderstandings, conflicts, and frustrations, but when we choose to empathize instead of criticize, we open the door to healthier, more meaningful connections. And if you've already been practicing this in your daily life, pausing to consider another person's struggles before reacting, you're living out a timeless Stoic principle, likely without even realizing it. Do you find joy in the small, simple things? Maybe it's the warmth of sunlight streaming through your window in the morning, the sound of birds chirping in the distance, or the calm of sipping your favorite tea after a long day. If you've felt contentment in moments like these, you're already practicing a key element of Stoicism, finding happiness in simplicity. The Stoics believed that true contentment doesn't come from extravagant possessions or grand achievements, but from appreciating what is natural, sufficient, and always within our reach. Seneca, one of the most well-known Stoic philosophers, wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more who is poor." This timeless insight reminds us that the constant pursuit of more wealth, more status, more material things can actually lead to dissatisfaction. Why? Because the more we chase, the more we convince ourselves that what we already have isn't enough. The Stoics instead encouraged us to step back and ask, what do I truly need to be happy? More often than not, the answer can be found in life's simplest pleasures. Consider this: when was the last time you felt truly at peace? Was it during a complicated, high-stakes moment? Or was it something simpler, like taking a walk in nature, where the fresh air and changing scenery allowed your mind to relax? Perhaps it was a quiet evening at home, sharing laughs with loved ones, or simply reflecting on a day well spent. These are the moments where happiness often hides, not in flashy distractions, but in the subtle beauty of everyday life. The Stoics embraced minimalism not as a strict rule, but as a guiding philosophy to lighten the mental burden that comes with overcomplication. For example, Seneca himself advocated for periodically living with less, not as a punishment, but as a way to remind ourselves that happiness is independent of luxury. He encouraged his students to practice gratitude for basic things like good health, nourishing food, and companionship. By learning to value what is natural and sufficient, we begin to free ourselves from the trap of always wanting more. Think about how this looks in your own life. Maybe you've chosen to keep your weekends free for rest instead of packing them with endless plans. Or maybe you found joy in cooking a simple meal at home instead of feeling the need to dine out at fancy restaurants. These small decisions reflect Stoic wisdom in action, prioritizing what truly nourishes your body and soul over superficial indulgences. Now take a moment to reflect: what simple thing made you happy recently? Was it the smell of rain, the satisfaction of finishing a task, or the comfort of a favorite book? When we pause to notice and appreciate these little moments, we invite gratitude into our lives, and gratitude in turn fosters contentment. The beauty of this practice is that it doesn't depend on luck, wealth, or anything outside your control. It's available to you every single day, regardless of your circumstances. By cultivating contentment in simplicity, you align yourself with one of Stoicism's most profound teachings. This doesn't mean rejecting ambition or avoiding pleasure altogether. Instead, it's about focusing on what truly matters. The next time life feels overwhelming, pause and return to the basics. Go for a walk, enjoy a quiet moment, or simply breathe deeply. These small, mindful acts can remind you that happiness is often much closer than it seems. And if you've already found joy in life's simple pleasures, then you're living out Stoic minimalism without even realizing it. So there you have it, 10 subtle yet powerful signs that Stoicism might already be influencing your life, even if you've never studied a single philosophical text. These principles, focusing on what you can control, managing your emotions, turning obstacles into opportunities, cultivating gratitude, and so much more, are not just abstract ideas reserved for ancient philosophers. They're practical tools for living a calmer, more intentional life in today's fast-paced, unpredictable world. What's fascinating is that you may already be applying these ideas without even realizing it, proving just how timeless and natural Stoic wisdom truly is. By recognizing these signs in your own life, you've taken the first step toward living more deliberately. Stoicism isn't about perfection or suppressing emotions. It's about building resilience, finding clarity during chaos, and uncovering the strength to lead a meaningful life. When you actively embrace these principles, you gain not only the ability to weather life's storms, but also the perspective to find joy, purpose, and gratitude in the everyday. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. These words remind us that no matter what challenges we face, the way we think, respond, and grow is always within our control. And that's a liberating truth, one that can transform the way we approach setbacks, relationships, and even our own habits. Now, take a moment to reflect. Which of these signs resonated most with you? Maybe it was the idea of turning obstacles into opportunities or the practice of gratitude for life's simple pleasures. Perhaps it was recognizing the importance of pausing before reacting or letting go of things you can't control. Whatever spoke to you, think about how you can intentionally cultivate these principles moving forward to create a more fulfilling and grounded life. And we'd love to hear from you. Which Stoic principle have you noticed in your own life, or which one do you want to embrace more intentionally? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to know which insights resonate most with you. If you enjoyed exploring Stoic ideas and want to continue this journey of personal growth and resilience, consider subscribing for more inspiring content. Together, we can dive deeper into the timeless wisdom that helps us navigate modern life with grace and strength. Thank you for watching, and remember, the power to shape your life lies within your own mind. Until next time, take care and keep practicing that inner